Good morning. I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. I am glad to get to join you all. If you are watching from Florida or from any area that was impacted by the recent hurricanes, sending a ton of support out to you all. And then thank you to everyone watching from London, someone from Canada, and to the global viewers as well, welcome. If you're watching on replay, it's going to be my goal to put some timestamps down at the bottom. Today, I want to talk about the defense's motion that they filed last week, and then the state filed two motions. And then I also want to talk about Sarah declining the plea deal, which, if you've watched Natalie Lawyer Chick's video or any other lawyer or anybody else's commentary, in my personal opinion, it was a very bad idea, especially with what we're going to look at with the state, because the state has a really good point, and she might not be able to use that battered spouse syndrome at all. And so we are going to get to that today. And if y'all have questions as we go, please let me know. I go back and forth between viewing the document and viewing the chat. And so let's hop right in. So this first motion is the defendant's motion in limine. I love that word, in limine. I don't know. It's just I'm super random today. Okay, coffee's still kicking in, but all right. So this was filed last week, and they are going to ask for certain portions of her interrogation to be withheld. And so this first part, um, pages 69 through 71, they go into this whole conversation about Eli and Kim, and they're talking about bathrooms. They go into all of this. The state agrees to keep this part out. So they are going to keep out the conversation about the bathroom. Okay. But they also wanted the portion, page 53, line 11. Detective CK said, "Well, he's dead as a result of your actions." And in line 13, Detective CK said, "He's dead as a result of your actions." And then line 14, Sarah Boone says, "I understand that." And so they also want this line. "I have one last question. I mean, you realize you're the person that killed him, right?" And then Sarah Boone's response is, "I thought about that." Well, intention or not, George is dead. You act like when you say unintentionally, that absolves you from everything. And so the defense, Owens is trying. Okay, so Owens is just doing his job. And so they're saying that the detective is offering a legal opinion and he shouldn't be offering a legal opinion. So that's what he submitted. So the state responded to it, and they do not object to the defendant's request regarding 69 to 71. And sometimes I think they let Sarah have a little something. Like, I think they give Sarah a little bit of room where it's like, "Okay, let's let's throw out that part about the bathrooms." Okay. But we are not going to throw out those other sections. The request from pages 53, 55, 56, and 92, the statements are designed to elicit responses from the defendant, and they did. Like, she didn't say it was self-defense. She didn't say, like, she just kept saying it was not intentional. It was not intentional. And he's like, not intentional, like, that doesn't absolve you of anything. And she's like, and so the state is going to fight for those statements to stay in, and I don't blame them. I do not blame them. And they do say that maybe the judge can add a jury instruction that says you are about to watch a recorded interview that contains opinions and statements by detectives Copsell and Lowen to Sarah Boone. These opinions and statements are pertinent only to explain the reactions and responses they elicit. You are not to consider these opinions and statements by the police officer as true, but only to establish the context of Sarah Boone's reactions and responses. And I think that was really smart. And I personally think that those statements are going to stay in. And yes, it was Sarah Boone's birthday yesterday. If you are new to my channel, if you go over to the community tab, I have Boone Go cards. So instead of bingo, Legally Blonde recommended Boone Go, and those cards on one of the cards it said someone mentions her birthday, so we're going to tweak that a little bit to, like, if she talks about how hard it's been having to spend her birthdays in jail, or so any mention like that will count. But if she just states her birthday, that doesn't technically count for the boon go. Okay, so we will see if somehow anything about her birthday comes in. All right. And I also want to mention that during this video today, we are also going to talk about narcissism. Thank you to when you all recommend videos. So I don't always do every video you all recommend, but I watched a video called Narcissism Scare, and it's by Sarah Z. And we're going to watch just a short clip from that. And we're going to talk about, just the spectrum of narcissism and my thoughts on that. Is there a such thing as healthy narcissism? Like, we're just going to dive a little deeper because when we talk about Sarah, sometimes we also just so happen to talk about narcissism. I have a dark sense of humor. So if you are new to this channel, please know the way I interact and talk about things here, this is not therapy. This is not like my goal is to teach and explain and for us to learn a little, but sometimes I use a little snark. And I will also disclose I if I was on the jury and I was able to see that video of George in the suitcase and her taunting him, appearing to sound very drunk, and then she says she just went to sleep, I personally would find her guilty. I just would. And ever since I've seen that video, and we are not gonna show the video today, I don't think we need to. I so that is my so she is innocent until proven guilty. Okay. This is not a court. Like, this is opinion and commentary. Like, that's why we're here. All right. So then let's get to this part. So, trigger warning on this one, the state is going to provide information based on Sarah Boone's interview with the state's expert. And then they've also done depositions with the defense experts as well. The state is going to they filed a motion to exclude the mention of battered spouse syndrome, and we are going to dig into that a little bit more today. And I think this flows right into why I personally think she should have accepted the deal, because 15 years manslaughter, because there's a chance she could be found guilty of second degree and spend the rest of her life in jail. I do not think if she's found guilty of second degree I do not think she's going to get the lower end of 22. She has caused the Florida now. And then it's like, do you hold somebody in jail for, but like, she's not showing remorse. Like, she's not showing any, oh, I just and I don't know what the judge is gonna do, and Judge Cranick is so peaceful, he's so calm, but he does not play. Do not mess with Judge K. And I personally view the hurricane that it also gave the state more time to prepare as well, because in the hearing that the state, I think it was the October 2nd hearing, the last few weeks have just flown by so fast. The state even mentioned, like, the pace that everything is going, that they're on the same deadline. And this extra week, I think it gave the state time to prepare. I did not have natural disaster on the Bungo card. I was not prepared for her to get, because I think I might have had continuance, that someone asked for a continuance. That might be on one of the cards. I did not have natural disaster on my Bungo card. Once again, we are going to dive into what Sarah's saying happened, which I I don't even know that this is all of the truth, but this is what she's now saying to try to defend her actions. The defendant has filed a notice and an amended notice of her intent to rely on battered spouse syndrome evidence in this case. Battered spouse syndrome is not actually a defense to a crime. The introduction of BSS evidence to support a self defense theory is not for the purpose of justifying a defendant's misperception of reality or to explain why an unreasonable belief was nonetheless justifiable due to her condition. Rather, the Florida Supreme Court, see? So Judge K loves some, like, he's like, what's the law? Judge K is always like, what's the law? And the state is coming with the law. The Florida Supreme Court has sanctioned the use of BSS to show why the defendant's actions were reasonable, to show, in spite of a reasonable perception of danger from the battering spouse, the battered defendant would remain in the home with her batterer, where she may resort to the exertion of force against him to prevent imminent death or bodily harm. There's no evidence that there was, in this incident, that there was any imminent death or great bodily harm. None whatsoever. And the state gives the law. Facts. The defendant has presented several accounts of what happened on February 23rd, 2020. She made a 911 call at approximately 1 p.m. on February 24th, 2020. She spoke to a patrol deputy on body-worn camera shortly thereafter, provided a statement to detectives a few hours later, and then provided a second statement to detectives on February 25th. The defendant retained Dr. Julie Harper as one of her BSS experts in 2020. Over the course of the next several years, Dr. Harper interviewed the defendant about the events of February 23rd multiple times. And I do think the state is going to be able to ask that doctor on cross-examination, at what point did her story change? Like, has this always been what she told you happened? Because I do personally think that Sarah's story has now changed. And as a psychologist, I have to look at, there's a reason why, potentially there could be a reason why the story has changed. She's now telling a story that could possibly fit the her defense. Now, there could be some aspects of the truth in this story, because she's going to bring in the bat. The bat is going to come up, and the state has always thought that somehow the bat was used in the commission of this alleged crime. I guess alleged, I don't know what to say. All right. And so exhibit A at the hearing on this motion will be Dr. Harper's deposition, which was taken on October 1st, 2024. The state would direct the court. And so we don't have access to this deposition, which is fine. Like, that's totally fine. The state retained Dr. Tanya Werner, who I believe this individual is a forensic psychiatrist. I could be wrong. We will see, because I tried to research the experts a little bit before doing this. And from what I saw, I think this individual might be a forensic psychiatrist. And Dr. Werner evaluated the defendant on October 2nd, and Dr. Werner was deposed on October 4th. And then they have that information. The state is not asking the court to make any credibility determinations about the defendant's statements to the doctors. That would be for the jury to do so. In the full context of a cross-examination with the defendant's statements to law enforcement. So the state is not even trying to say, we think she's lying. Like, they're not even saying that. They're just saying what she said does not meet criteria. What she's saying now. Okay. So let's go with what she's saying now. that does not meet the legal criteria for battered spouse. And this is what the state is saying. Remember, I'm a psychologist, not a lawyer. What the state is asserting is that, as a matter of law, what the defendant told the doctors does not entitle her to a self defense instruction, nor does it entitle her to introduce evidence of prior acts of. I'm sorry. I get excited about this stuff. Anyone who's been here for a while, I am easily excitable. But so the state is like trying to limit, not only can she not mention self-defense, they also want to restrict her ability to talk about prior incidents of violence. I don't know if the judge is going to limit it, but I don't blame them for asking, because the defense is prepared to portray George as this horrific, violent, aggressive person, and I don't think this is a self-defense. I personally don't feel. These are my personal thoughts. I don't know what happened. I don't think it was self-defense. My own personal thoughts. All right. And so, reputation evidence of the decedent's violence, or BSS evidence, to help the jury understand why why what she did was objectively reasonable, because it wasn't, but that's just my thoughts. The defendant told the doctors that because of her past be I'm sorry. The defendant told the doctors that because of past violence between her and the decedent, she had a generalized fear every day that the decedent would cause her serious bodily harm or unalive her. I don't believe that, but I could be wrong. However, on this particular day, the decedent did not take an overt action, even in the slightest, that made her so George didn't do anything that would cause her to possibly believe that he would cause her serious bodily harm or death. According to the defendant, when she and the decedent woke up, the decedent wanted to drink alcohol. She did not. So, in order to distract the decedent, she suggested they instead clean the defendant's townhome, which they did. At the conclusion of cleaning, the decedent still wished to consume alcohol. So the two of them began consuming alcohol. The defendant did not want to consume alcohol, but she did so to placate him. And if Tanika's here in the chat, Tanika's 2 cents, I saw her coverage of this, talking about the fact that Sarah is still denying that she has a problem with alcohol. Because I don't believe that it was solely his idea to drink and she didn't want to drink. I don't believe that at all. There is evidence from the neighbors that she was constantly under the influence. Before she even met him, she had issues with alcohol. I think they met at a bar. Correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. I'm thinking, and before she even officially left Brian, I think she brought George to to the house where her and Brian and their son lit. Sarah, I just can't. I just can't. In my personal opinion, the biggest issue for Sarah was her, from my personal opinion, she had an alcohol problem. And what alcohol does is it lowers inhibitions. So the things that a person might not do sober, under the influence of alcohol, they might do. Now, when I drink, I might I just go to sleep. So I'm not a good example. But there are other people that when they drink, they get they might dance. There are some people that have trouble managing their anger, and when they drink, they can get aggressive. And so, but if I drink, I'm not going to get I'm not an aggressive person. I'm not, my inhibitions aren't to be aggressive. If that makes sense. But Sarah, I think when she drank, I think she became belligerent and mean. We have seen Sarah sober, okay? Many times. I have heard other people cover her jail stuff. Can you imagine Sarah intoxicated? And I also think that she passed out. I don't think she fell. I think she passed out. I think, and I don't know. Sober. S So a lot of people in the chat have mentioned that she might be And people from the recovery community, let me know if the term dry drunk is still being used, because that was something that I know that we described in the past. I know that's something that was coined by within Alcoholics Anonymous. So if a person does not do deeper treatment, because I thought it was interesting in her most recent hearing, she's not on any depression medication. She's not on any anxiety medication. She's only on medication for, like, acid reflux. Like, and I think she might have received some therapy in jail, I'm not sure. So that those things are private, like, that's not public record. Any inmate that needs mental health supports, depending on the jail's, accommodations, what they have available, often they can meet and have psychological support, but I don't think she thinks she has a problem. I don't think she thinks she has a problem, which is the problem, which is a whole other conversation, okay? Alright, so let's get back to this part. So, she drank to placate him. I don't believe it. The alcohol that they consumed was a Chardonnay bottled by Woodbridge. In order to prevent the decedent from becoming sad or upset, she kept him diverted by smoking cigarettes with him, drinking, enjoying each other's company, perhaps using the dartboard on her porch and doing arts and crafts and puzzles. And it's so like, she's still trying to be like, "I was the one that was trying to help him. Like, I was the one that was so good for him. But, like, you're the reason he's deceased. You wouldn't unzip the suitcase." Like, it makes me mad. Okay. Although it apparently would upset the decedent, the defendant suggested he call his daughter. I don't believe that. I think he probably wanted I don't believe that. Like, why are we even bringing her up? But Sarah did. So, and according to Sarah, his daughter did not like talking to him when he was drinking, or that he call his brother to tell his brother that the decedent had dragged the defendant down the stairs the night before. What? Because I think he had a pleasant conversation with his brother. I don't think anything like that even came out. Okay, Sarah. Okay, because it's my understanding that Sarah was the one that rushed George off the phone with his brother because she wanted to call her brother, I think. Okay. Having done these playful activities for numerous hours. Now you can just feel the sarcasm. Like, I wonder who had to write this. I so wonder who had to write this. But having done these playful activities for numerous hours, there came a point where the defendant and decedent were sitting on her couch in the downstairs living room, and the decedent tagged her and said, "You're it." From past games of hide and seek, the defendant understood this to mean he wanted to play hide and seek. Okay. She begrudgingly engaged in this game, as with everything else, to placate the defendant. She ran up to the shower after becoming cold and perhaps misunderstanding about the rules of hide and seek. I've said for a long time, the way she describes hide and seek is not how I play hide. Like, you don't you don't hide the person that you're trying to find. How perhaps misunderstanding the rules of, because what she's describing does not sound like hide and seek to me. Like it sounds like torture. Like, that's like, she's describing somebody being a jerk. Like, she's like, you don't put people in suitcases. Good gosh, why do we have to say that? Okay. Oh, okay. So she left the shower upstairs and returned downstairs to find the decedent placing himself in a suitcase to hide. 'Cause yeah, exactly. At the time of his death, the decedent was only 103 pounds and had a blood alcohol level of 0.138, which is, I believe, 2 times the legal limit in Florida to drive. But the defendant saw him doing this and decided to zip the suitcase shut while the decedent was inside it. So that's not how you play hide and seek. You don't zip the person. You don't hide them. That's that's not how you play hide and seek. I should have added someone tells Sarah how you play hide and seek. Like, oh well. They were both laughing, and there was still no animus between them on this day. The defendant states she did not zip it completely shut. The decedent was able to poke a couple of fingertips through the gap left by the zipper. And then the decedent said he could not breathe. I don't think it happened this way. I think she's leaving some stuff out. So Sarah, unfortunately, they never took hers. So they never took hers the next day, and y'all remember, because the state also filed a motion to enter the transcript of her testimony from that motions hearing where she said she was hungover, still impaired by the impact of alcohol from the previous night. They've asked the transcript of that to be entered because I think they're going to use that as rebuttal evidence. Like I think they're going to use that later. Like, are you lying now or were you lying then? Like, what, Sarah, what are you doing? What is this? um, okay. So, and then the decedent said he could not breathe. The decedent obviously got mad about not being able to breathe. The decedent's getting mad made the defendant get mad. I'm breathing because this is George is deceased because of her. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. This reminded her of past violence the decedent committed against her, causing her to be unable to breathe at those times. Because on the video, she says that he had strangled her or something. Like that's what she says, that she's getting him back for that stuff. Like that's what she says on the video. This made her angry. The defendant shook the suitcase. She lost control and the suitcase flipped. I don't believe that either. I don't believe that either. I don't believe she lost. I think she flipped it. I don't believe she lost control and it flipped. She hit the decedent's fingertips with the wooden baseball bat that was in the room. So he was trying to get out, and she's saying that she hit his fingertips with the baseball bat. Now, after having committed the independent forcible felonies of aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and non-forcible felony of false imprisonment, the defendant believed the decedent would kill her. So that's a little snark by the state, I think. Like, she's the one that's being aggressive, and she's now thinking that he's going to harm her. So she goes to sleep? Ma'am, you thought he could get out. You're afraid for your life, and you go to sleep. It doesn't make any sense. And Judge Judy taught me if it doesn't make sense, it's not true. Okay. Despite believing the decedent would kill her, the defendant flipped the suitcase over so it was upright, and she believed the decedent would be able to let himself out. The defendant's specific intent was for the decedent to feel what it was like for her to choke and not be able to breathe. She intended for him to feel this for 2 minutes and believed he would let himself out. And when that happened, if she died, she died? I don't understand that part, but okay. She did not intend to unalive him, and she did not believe that leaving the decedent in the predicament she placed him in would cause his death. His death was an accident. And for battered spouse syndrome, it can't be an accident. For self-defense, it can't be an accident. They've said this a million times, Sarah. If you're saying it's an accident, if you're saying it's not intentional, you have to blame the alcohol, like, to bring it down to manslaughter. Eh, take the deal. But oh well. Okay. Legal analysis. Battered spouse syndrome evidence is inadmissible if the defense is an accident rather than self defense. They give the law. The defendant's testimony is that she intentionally zipped the suitcase out of levity and while kidding around with the decedent during a friendly game of hide and seek. Then the decedent informed her that he could not breathe. She intentionally decided, out of anger, to make him feel like he's trapped for a couple of minutes while she beat and shook the suitcase and hit his hand with a baseball bat. This is aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and false imprisonment. She stated that she flipped the suitcase right side up, saw that he could get a few fingertips through the opening, went upstairs to bed, believing he would be able to get himself out in a couple of minutes. She had no intention to unalive him, no intention to leave him trapped inside. She did not even comprehend he could die from this. And you know that had to be Sarah's words. I'm pretty sure this is Sarah saying that she didn't even know. It just sounds like something Sarah would say. The defendant is thus still saying that the decedent's death was an accident. She is not entitled to an instruction on self defense or to supplant a self defense case with reputation evidence, specific incidents of past violence, or battered spouse syndrome evidence. So this was before the state offered her another deal. Why wouldn't she take it? Why wouldn't she take it? The defendant's statement that she perpetually lived in a state of fear of the decedent is not sufficient to allow for a self defense instruction and all the ancillary evidence of reputation testimony, specific acts of past harm, or BSS testimony. However, before a defendant may introduce evidence of a victim's character, he must first show that there is an overt act by the victim at or about the time of the incident that reasonably indicated a need for self defense. And she's still saying it was a game. So she didn't say it was an argument. She didn't say, like, we were so upset. And then, like, you know, so something that might have been self defense is if she said they were in the midst of a heated argument and she just hit him over the head with the bat and then he passed out and she zipped him in there and then but she's not she's saying he said tag, we played hide and seek. I zipped him in there and we were laughing. It was fine until he said he couldn't breathe and then I got mad because I had been in a situation like that before. So I just what? Like that it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And so let's not forget that George had a no contact order with Sarah at the time of his demise. Likely filed by her. My heart breaks for his family. And I think the state was trying to the reason why the state was trying to avoid all of this is because if the defense is able to put on a self-defense, like, a plea could have saved his family the pain of having to go through this. And if they go through all of this, that's where Natalie Lawyer Chick said that the judge is likely going to do more than the minimum. So if she's found guilty of second degree, then she'll likely do more than the 22-year minimum for that particular crime. So if you'd like to see the rest of that motion, Tanika's 2 cents covered it. And then also you can just download it from the Orange County Clerk's website. I did want to move on to the notice of supplemental discovery filed by the state. And the state filed, so this was e-filed on 10/8, and they would like for transcripts of defendant's testimony on October 2nd because she said she was drunk, and they want that in evidence, and now it will be. So there's that. All right, let me see. It really was a great deal, and Natalie Lawyer Chick also talked about the fact that the um Natalie Lawyer Chick talked about how they're likely putting all of this on the record so that Sarah can't say my lawyer never told me about the deal, or I didn't understand the offer. I didn't understand that I was facing life in so just so that she can't say that she didn't understand. Lisa says, I'm convinced the prosecutors offered that dream plea deal only because she didn't want, yeah, they didn't want to deal with her. Not like this is gonna be, and it's a cut and dry case. They have so much evidence. They have so much evidence. So, I am gonna play this part where she turns down the plea deal. I was trying to find the longer recording of this hearing, because that's where the judge asked her if she's on any medication, and she does not mention anything for anxiety, depression, like, no psychotropic medications. She only mentions I believe it was something, for, like, acid reflux or something. Alright. I have the full link to this down in the description. Alright, so let's play this. Yep, closed captions are on.
Do you understand that if we were to proceed to trial in this matter, and if you were found guilty, the lowest permissible sentence that the court could levy in this case would be 22.5 years in the Department of Corrections? Do you understand that? Do you understand the state's offer to resolve this case? Okay.
The offer is 15 years to a lesser included charge of manslaughter, with the understanding that she would serve 85% of that sentence.
That's up to the department and her behavior, but that is my understanding of the section.
Ma'am, understanding the state's offer, do you wish to accept or reject the state's offer to resolve this case?
Reject.
Oh man, she
She said that so fast. Reject. And she can. So this is her right. She can go to trial. And this is true. Cuz I saw somebody do a video compare, like, could Owens be her? I'm bad with names. I think the initials were JB. So Casey Anthony's lawyer, I want to say Jose Boye, but I'm bad with names. Okay. So we could all she could be found not guilty. She really could. She could be the one with the last laugh here. For Casey Anthony's case, they didn't have a video of right before the crime, or, like, during the commission of the crime. Like, they didn't have that. I do think there is more evidence in this case, and, we will see what happens. Thank you, Northwest, for confirming that she said she's on Lipitor, which is for cholesterol, and a acid reflux medication. Those are the only medications that she is on, and, thank you, Jose Baez. I might be saying that wrong. But yes, that was his law. And, so Dr. Brennan, he went on court TV, and I covered this in probably 3, 4 videos back. But he went on court TV and said, like, this isn't a typical self-defense. Like, normally there's a pew pew. And so he did not meet with her. He is just giving general self-defense testimony. It's my understanding they've entered him as an expert in clinical psychology, and he is just going to talk about battered spouse syndrome in general. And he is not going to say she does or does not have battered spouse syndrome. He's only going to be talking in hypotheticals. That's my understanding. I do not believe that he met with her. So Lisa, I feel like I covered it in a previous video. So sidebar real quick. There was a psychologist in Florida who was arrested, and I think is currently still being detained because of the nature of the crimes. She met a 15-year-old girl, like, just out and about, and brought the girl back to her room and then started to traffic her. And thankfully, the girl was able to get free, and she remembered who it was. They pressed charges. They were able to get arrested, but she was a licensed psychologist, and the Florida Board of Psychology has revoked her ability to practice, even though she hasn't been found guilty or innocent or anything yet. And so I did definitely see that case. And I've talked before about red flags. And I do just hope that there aren't any other victims of this particular psychologist. It sounds like she had a substance. And so none of this excuses it. I'm just trying to explain. It sounds like she wasn't actively practicing, or like it seems like she had a drug problem and she was ugh. But I really do wonder if there were other victims. And so yeah. Um all right. Let's jump ahead a little bit because they go back to the court hearing. Um I think they play a little bit more from court. I don't play the video because they also asked her if she was happy with her counsel, and or like if there were witnesses that she wanted to have that weren't called, because I think they're just trying to make sure that there isn't a issue on appeal. And so that's that part. Now we're going to dive a little deeper into narcissism. Is there a such thing as healthy narcissism? Why we want to be careful talking like overgeneralizing. So like if somebody is just kind of selfish, that doesn't mean that they meet criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. So there are two different things. There is the diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, and then there are narcissistic traits. And I have not evaluated Sarah. I do not know. It seems as though she has some traits of narcissism, and that sometimes there can be a blend, because sometimes we talk about different types. We talk about malignant, covert, vulnerable. We'll talk about different types of narcissism. Well, some people can have like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and something becomes a disorder when it impairs functioning. So there was a video, and thank you to the subscriber that mentioned for me to watch this and talk about it, because there are people that make a business off of um, talking about narcissism, selling courses and coaches, and when you talk about narcissism, sometimes those videos are the ones that will go viral and this and that, because it kind of feeds into fear. And so I don't do any of this or say any of this to cause panic or fear. Okay. So I do this to help educate so that we have an understanding of just what are some of the traits that we're seeing. It's common in criminal populations to see traits of psychopathology, so of antisocial personality disorder, and traits of narcissism. Like that sometimes happen. But you can also see some mild traits of narcissism in CEOs or in other, in other fields, and in other things. And it becomes a problem when it starts impacting a person's life, or if they start harming other people. If those traits, turn into narcissistic abuse. Okay. So let's go on ahead and just watch a section of this and we'll talk about it. So this is where she's going to get into psychiatry and the diagnosis of narcissism.
We already established that in the vast majority of cases, when a person discusses narcissists, they do not mean people with an actual clinical diagnosis. They mean an asshole. However, I do want to talk about my theoretical standpoints on the psychiatric systems at play here too, because where these diagnoses do exist, they are not neutral labels either. Psychiatric diagnoses are not the same thing as, for example, identifying a broken bone or a measles infection, wherein these things can be observed and categorized more or less objectively. Rather, they are words we use to describe patterns of symptoms. We see that certain behaviors and traits tend to show up together, and so we group them together under one name. Virtually everyone on the planet has certain traits that you'd label as symptoms of disorders. Everyone has traits that autistic people have. Everyone has traits that are considered narcissistic or depressed or anxious. It's deemed a disorder when someone has more than what we consider a normal amount of those traits. So if you have enough of them to significantly impair your functioning in daily life, that warrants a diagnosis. But
all right. And so I do have a full link to this video because She also goes in to talk about how sometimes these labels or using this language can sometimes be stigmatizing for individuals. And so individuals with borderline personality disorder can have more difficulty finding a therapist because there can be bias with therapists about what that diagnosis means. And because so I work with people with BPD, and there is a spectrum, and none of them actively engage in self-harm or any of those things right now. A lot They all have a history of those things. None of So sometimes if they were looking for a new therapist and they said they had that diagnosis, a lot of therapists would think, oh, you go to the ER all the time, you do this, you do that. Like sometimes there are these ideas that we get from it. Also, there's been research. I'm sorry if that made a noise. There's also been research where two profiles with the exact same symptoms were presented to therapists, to psychiatrists, to psychologists, and a female with the symptoms was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and a male with those symptoms was diagnosed with narcissism. So sometimes there can be gender bias with this particular diagnosis. In her video, she also mentions oppositional defiant disorder and some of the history of racial bias and things that can really impede psychiatry. And sometimes women are expected to be selfless. So when a woman is selfish, sometimes she might be called a narcissist. Now, I'm saying Sarah likely exhibits traits of narcissism because like, because of facts, because of like what we've seen, like she has never once, in my opinion, shown an ounce of remorse for the death of George. All the She had like half a moment of it during her interrogation, but I think it was to get sympathy for herself from the what's the word? From the detectives, okay? Cuz lots of people look at Sarah and they say they think that she might have borderline personality disorder. And so that's where there can sometimes be gender bias with some of these things, where somebody looks at it and the exact same person with the exact same symptoms might get a different diagnosis due to bias. And so it's really important to be aware of bias, to address these things. Sometimes there can be some misogyny and just bigger systems at work, and I just thought it was important to mention that. Um how was who diagnosed? What was part of the question? How were they diagnosed if they weren't seen by the doctor? Charlie, which one does that mean? Welcome, hello, baby. And I have a lot of compassion. So the way I view personality dysfunction is that for a lot of people, it's attempts to get needs met, attempts for connection, and there's underlying pathology that causes problems. Intermittent explosive disorder is still around. I rarely give it. I've seen it used sometimes in criminal cases to try to justify a situation. But excuse me. I That's not something that I commonly diagnose, but it is in the DSM. It is a real thing. Let me see if Charlie answered. Okay. Oh, your therapist is very is very proud of you. Congrats, hello baby. And yes, boundaries do not make you selfish. Exactly. I have lots of resources on the community tab to talk about boundaries, to talk about some of those things. I've also done some past videos talking about that as well. I want to switch over to Dr. Marcy. Oop, okay. Share this tab instead. So, Dr. Tracy Marks, y'all know me in names, okay? So, she is going to describe some aspects of narcissism that I thought, because there's all this language and all these words, and you don't have to know them all. But if you're interested in these topics, it can be an interesting deep dive.
And I've put it off for a long time because it's a very complex topic and I want to do it justice. Narcissism has several facets to it. Here are some of the terms you've probably already heard: narcissism, pathological narcissism, malignant narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, narcissistic vulnerability, narcissistic injury, and narcissistic abuse. In this video, I'm only going to talk about healthy narcissism. Narcissism is not a diagnosis, it's a psychological concept that helps explain or define human behavior. Another term for this is a psychological construct. Narcissism is defined as love of the self. The name comes from the Greek mythological character Narcissus. Narcissus was a handsome hunter who fell in love with himself and eventually with his reflection in a pool of water.
And I talked about this during I'm making sure I gave her a good pause. Let's give her a good pause. Okay, let's do this one. And I talked about this during my video on egoism and setting boundaries, and trying to get a good pause. There we go. And with this, I love the work of Dr. Dr. Ramani, and I have one of her videos linked down in the description, because she does not feel that I'll just play a portion of it. Share this tab instead. Okay. So let's hear Dr. Ramani's thoughts on healthy narcissism. She's not a fan.
Narcissism. From the top, let me tell you this, I am not a fan of this term. So a friend and former colleague of mine sent me an article the other day about this idea of healthy narcissism. I see these articles crop up from time to time, and they definitely confuse people who wonder, well, maybe I'm being too hard on this narcissistic person who is invalidating me. Maybe it's just their self-confidence and I'm too sensitive, because narcissism can be healthy. Now, the argument that the healthy narcissism believers take comes from one of the leading theoreticians in the field. Healthy narcissism, or the real self, is experienced as a sense of self that feels adequate and competent, a feeling derived mostly from reality, with some input from fantasy. So why not just call that a healthy sense of self?
So I agree with her that I'm going to send her there we go. I agree with her that I think for people that have been harmed by an individual with narcissistic traits. So she has a phenomenal book, Dr. Ramani. It's called It's Not You, because somebody mentioned that they had never heard of narcissistic abuse. And that is the what the victim of the end of that's the victim of the narcissist. So somebody with narcissistic personality disorder, their children sometimes will struggle with their sense of self. And there are books written for adults. So there's a book called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, sometimes talking about it as like an antagonistic personality style versus the specific language of narcissism. So you never go up to somebody and say, "You're a narcissist," or "You're gaslighting me," or like don't use that exact language back at the person. What can be more helpful is, when I talk about my feelings, it seems like you invalidate me. Does that make sense? Like, so instead talk about what's happening. Don't use those like gaslighting. Like don't use those terms. It'll just make things worse in my own personal experience. I work with a lot of individuals that are healing from this type of harm. Her video, so I was able to see her speak live last year, and I'm going to try to attend one of her seminars again this year, because as a therapist, I was trained how to help an individual with narcissistic personality disorder traits or features, but I was not trained in how to help their partner, their children. I was not trained in how to do that. And researching and learning more from her and other experts in the field. Another expert is Dr. Craig. Y'all know me in names. I have his because he has a book, Rethinking Narcissism. It starts with AM. Dr. Craig Malkin. I might be saying it wrong, but let me share this tab. He has a book, um, and for an individual that has somebody in their life that has these types of traits, this is what can happen. Now, I will also tell you that both Dr. Malkin and Dr. Romani talk about being raised by narcissists and having experienced that type of harm. So that might play into their difficulty with people talking about healthy levels of it because they've both said that they experienced that type of harm from a caregiver. I think Dr. Malkin says it was his mom. I forget who Dr. Romani, but she does talk about one of her parents having those types of traits. If you are trying to co-parent with somebody that has these types of traits, children need one safe parent. I thought it was her dad. I thought it was her dad. I'm thinking it was probably her dad. Children need one safe, stable place. And I work with kiddos that their parent has some of these traits and features. And I talk with the kids about their sense of self. I talk with the kids that it's not their job to make that other parent happy. I teach them emotional boundaries. And I'm able to kind of step in because if the if the safe, stable parent said those things, it could come off as parental alienation, or it could be harder to receive. There can be a lot of parentification because individuals that have like intense narcissistic traits where they have a very low sense of self. They expect other people to caretake for their emotions. They do emotional manipulation and all of those things. It can come up with their children, and sometimes they'll be really upset at the end of a visit and expect the children to console them, to make them feel better. Sometimes the children will talk about feeling like they're walking on eggshells when they're around that other parent. And that's a real thing. That's a real experience. And our court systems aren't great at talking about psychological harm. It's not great. It can be really hard, and it can also be hard for that child that loves that parent and wants a relationship with them, but also doesn't love, like, some of the interact like, sometimes it can go bad because individuals with these types of traits, they're not this way all of the time, and so that's where I don't see Sarah having any major outbursts in court. I don't see her like, she's very controlled to me, and I don't think she's going to, like, be like Ali Abulaban on cross-examination and totally lose it. I don't think Sarah is gonna do that because I think she is very concerned with how she presents, and she wants to present in a, like, professional, like, in a, "I'm smart, I know what I'm doing," except for when I conveniently don't understand words when I'm asked questions I don't wanna answer. That's another thing for Sarah. Their love is very, very conditional, and, um and it can be confusing for a child, and so that's where I work with children on that. I wish instead of calling it healthy levels of narcissism, because I think the way that we define narcissism, even when talking about Narcissus who, like, died because he wouldn't drink water because he was so in love with his own reflection, that's a problem. Like, if somebody has that level, like, that is a problem, and I would rather somebody have a healthy sense of self versus, like, an unhealthy sense of self. And, um, yeah, that's a whole thing. Alright. Yes, yes, yes. Make sure to go on ahead and like the video if you like this content. Make sure to go on ahead and subscribe. These are the things that we talk about. These are the things that we do. How can a parent involved with somebody with narcissistic traits remain safe for their child? Ooh, ugh. So that's where you get your own therapist. Because often the individual that no longer has, so narcissists need supply. Like, they sometimes thrive on conflict. This is my experience. These are my thoughts based on things I've seen in clinical practice. And they will sometimes antagonize and cause conflict and issues over the silliest things. Like talking about drop off at 5 p.m. versus 5:10. Does that, like, they will, because they will constantly be late, but they will lose it if you're late. They will constantly ask for adjustments and changes, but they will lose it if you ask for something reasonable. And so sometimes what individuals with those types of traits, they try to use the children to continue to control and get back at the adult. And so the adult has to manage their emotions. I would encourage people to look at Dr. Ramani's books. There is something called parallel parenting instead of co-parenting. It's really hard to co-parent with a narcissist. Sometimes you have to parallel parent. And you have to make sure that you just have your own emotional safety, that you have things in place for you, your supports, your people, all of those things. Yes, yes, Lisa. Attention is their currency. They will do, and negative attention. I feel like they almost crave negative attention more because they want you to look like the bad guy. So, in my experience, a lot of narcissists are instigators where they want you to go off. And then they're just like, because they're darvoing you, like they're flipping the script. And even though they're the one that's been poking, and now when you go off, they're like, oh my gosh, how could you say that to me? And so definitely recommend like checking out some of the other resources, checking out some of those things. Welcome to everybody that is just joining. Um, Holly, I see your comment. You mentioned both of your parents have narcissistic traits. Um, Childhood was hell. In my opinion, the best thing to do when you're involved with narcissists is to leave, and having a safe and stable place. And because I the decision to leave is hard. It is a financial one. It is a person, like, it is a lot. And there are people that get to that point where they're like, I don't deserve this. I deserve better. I deserve peace. And if I stay, hmm. And often what causes people to leave is, do I want my children to think this is normal? Because when you live in a house with a narcissist, my personal thoughts, my personal opinion, if they're not doing treatment, because there are treatments that are effective. The problem is that it can be difficult if the person doesn't have insight. It can be difficult for them to change because they often want to blame everybody else, and they won't often acknowledge what they're doing. And so there is another book. What is it? It's about attachment wounds. Oy, what's her name? Y'all know me in names. Um it's attachment wounds, um, trauma bond book. I think it's something like that. Let's see if it comes up. It's not the book Attached. It's a different book. A friend of mine wrote a book. Whole Again is a great book. Um, I think I have it in my book list. Give me a second to look on my book list, because I believe I have it there. I will share the screen, make it small. Oh, haven't shared anything yet. That's why. Share screen. I have a Amazon list, and you do not have to buy things from here. I have my favorite self-help books. Loving You is Hurting Me. This is the book. Am I still sharing this part of the screen? Let me see what I'm sharing. Nope. Okay, let's share this tab. Okay. Loving You is Hurting Me by Dr. Laura Copley. I think that's how you say it. And if the individual is willing to work on it and talk about things, sometimes that is possible, sometimes it's not. And so she has this book that identifies what are some factors that maybe the person can work through this, and then what are some factors that maybe the person can't. All right. All right. So those are those. Let's see. Let's see. And then there were some questions I wanted to get to. How much does gender play in mental health diagnosis? So, females and the global majority often get more often get stigmatized if the individual, if the therapist, if the diagnoser isn't aware of bias. So often, in particular, African American boys often get diagnosed later with autism than their Caucasian peers, than their European American peers, and displaying the same symptoms. The pediatrician just with one child, they might recommend it. With another child, they might see their behavior as behavioral and not see a developmental disorder, but with somebody else. And so that's where the bias of the individual. So that's why we have to be aware of bias. We just have to. Screeners can often help with bias, but and then sometimes in some communities it is they don't trust the mental health system, but gender, so sometimes women with ADHD, we've had to do more research within the last 10-15 years to notice that ADHD presents different in females versus males. Females often get diagnosed, and this is like sex, related to sex, that often females get diagnosed with ADHD later than their male counterparts. That's not for every situation, because if there's a little girl throwing chairs in kindergarten, that teacher is going to refer her for a diagnosis. But individuals with inattentive ADHD often get missed, or the girls that are very talkative, they're very friendly, and they daydream all the time, that often gets missed. And so it shouldn't play a role, but it still does. There is bias. And then, do men have tendencies to BPD as often as women? And so I do think that with some of our numbers that there can be bias with that, because sometimes a male presenting with the same symptoms might get diagnosed with maybe narcissism, or um or it might present different. I don't know that we've done enough research to look at the gender differences with borderline personality disorder, because that diagnosis is an issue of a lack of self. It is also difficulty regulating emotions. It's difficulty when things don't go their way. It's that black and white thinking. And I'm just listing general traits and qualities. There are criteria for all of these diagnoses and all of that. And so, all right. Thank you to everyone who is here. I truly appreciate it. Uh, I'm not a lawyer. So how's a crime of passion defined? I'm not a lawyer. The way I've heard lawyers defined it, it's like catching someone in the act. So a crime of passion would be like, it's like, it's my understanding it's normally like a in the moment thing, but that's not planned, because Ali Abulaban tried to claim that it was a crime of passion, but he, like, it was methodical. It seemed planned out. Like, it was a problem, and the jury found him guilty. Welcome, Tanika. I mentioned your channel a few times. Thank you so much for all your coverage of Sarah Boone. Does narcissism have a correlation with higher stubbornness? Is narcissism essentially stubbornness, but on a deeper level? It's deeper than that. I look at it more of like ego. So it's not just stubbornness. It goes a lot deeper. And so let's look up clinical narcissism. If we're talking about narcissistic personality disorder, there are certain traits, and that is the extreme. So narcissism is a spectrum. Some people just have like a few traits. Some people in conflict, this is how they act. Some people at work, this is their persona that they switch into. Some people are actually, they're probably more misogynistic than actual narcissists. Like, but or like there are other things going on. But all right, I'm gonna break it down. So Clinical narcissism is an unreasonably high sense of self-importance and require constant, excessive admiration. But that admiration is never enough. It is never, ever enough. Like, even when they get it, it never feels like it's enough, because the way that I view narcissism, it's like there's no bottom on their cup. Their love tank never fills, because the minute you give them feedback, you hate them. Like, that's the worst thing ever. And an individual with narcissistic personality disorder can become very reactive emotionally. And so uh, they feel they deserve privileges and special treatment. So that's that sense of entitlement. Now, I am an entitled driver. When I drive down the road and I'm in the left-hand lane, and let's say the speed limit is 65 and you're going 67, I feel like you should get over. And I have the right to go the speed. And I don't get tickets. Okay? I've been driving since 16. And I'm 42. I've had 2 tickets ever. Both times I thought the speed limit was 45 and it was 35. Those were the 2 times that I got. But like, so I am an entitled driver. Okay? This is my lane. I deserve my lane. Because sometimes when people set boundaries, people can like, so that's where some of our language can become a bit problematic. Yay, Sarah. Move. Psh, get out like, move out my, like, just get over. Like, it causes me a lot of but I breathe. So what happens is if somebody's going really slow in the left-hand lane and the right-hand lane is free, I will just get over it. Like, 'cause I don't get mad if I'm in the right-hand lane or in the middle, if I'm anywhere else. But if I'm in the left-hand lane and there's nobody in front of you, I don't like it. I have ticket money, not bail money, okay? I don't do reckless. I do have ticket money. Ticket money, not bail money. I paid those 2 tickets I got. I didn't even go to court, because I even asked, like, I got pulled over, like, because I wasn't driving reckless. It was only the first time it was, I think, 14 over. The second time it was 19 over, and 20 would have been reckless, and he had to mention that to me. Because they say, "How fast were you going?" I don't know. What you got? Because if I say something higher than what you got, you're gonna charge me with what I said. No, sir. Ma'am, do you know how fast you were going? I think it was close to the I don't think I didn't think it was that bad. Oh, wow, the speed limit. Oh, my bad. Don't do crimes. Don't do crimes. Oh, and and I rode in a Uber in Boston. So they were doing, you probably know what I'm talking about, Ashy Ash, if you're in Boston, because they did, so last year? They were doing construction by the airport, and a 20-minute drive became like an hour and a half. That Uber driver broke all the laws. Like, all the laws were broken. I don't know, but we got to our it was horrific traffic, because like I don't even know what they were trying to do with the construction, but it was just bad. It was just really, really bad. And I would not drive in Boston. I would Uber. It was a messy mess. It was a messy mess. All right. So I'm in Northern Virginia. So and in Northern Virginia, that we have a road, it's 495. It goes around 95. It's 495. The speed limit is 55. If you go 55, you will die. Like, dude, the cops go 70. Like, everybody, it's like the speed limit is 45, nobody goes 40. Sorry, the speed limit is 55, nobody goes 55. Like, if you're going 55, it could be all the way in the right-hand lane prepared. Okay, so 495 is a mess. Okay, my husband used to travel on 495 on a regular basis, and he would have the best stories. He would have the absolute best stories. So, and I get so confused. Okay, like I do. So I take the metro in DC. DC has half streets. DC has half streets. Why? I'll drive in New York. New York makes sense. DC does not make sense. There are half streets. There are lights in the middle of the road where it's like, am I at a light? Am I not at a light? I'm confused. I take the metro. I take an Uber. I do not walk there. Oh. And so do you just want a Q&A chat? Or the next, because we did a members only live on Saturday. So this past Saturday, we did a members only live. And the next 2 weeks is gonna be all Sarah Boone. It's gonna be all Sarah Boone. Yes, absolutely love the metro. I love public transportation when it's made to work. So I work in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and our public transportation, it's so when only people that don't have resources use public transportation, it's a broken system. So it can take like an hour to go 15 miles, which is ridiculous. Our public transportation is absolutely ridiculous. Um DC does not make sense. Does not make sense. And DC has a lot of like cameras. So thank God I didn't get email because I thought I ran a light, and DC has a lot of like cameras. They want all the monies. All the monies. I know. And Sarah wants a call in. And so you need to just comment to me. How do I do call in? Like, do I just have it? Because I want to find a system where people can call in and I can have the number, or that I can DM people that I've talked with frequently, that I can send them a secure link to be able to get on. Yes, Kate and Reston. The further north you go, so I work in Fredericksburg. The further north you go, north of Stafford, the driving gets I because yeah, it gets a bit bananas. So I use StreamYard. I use StreamYard. Yes. OBS is complicated, and I have not done that one. Uh so okay, so a link. Okay. Because I can bring people in if they wanted to be audio only through here. If people wanted to if they wanted to come come on. But yes. Yeah, and Discord, I'm too old. I know you said voice chat and Discord. I'm a member of like 3 or 4 Discord channels. They are all muted. I do not listen. So in Hampton Roads, people drive too slow. So I grew up down near Hampton, and back when 64 was only 2 lanes and not 3, and going from like Williamsburg up to Richmond, and I don't have a ton of road rage, but just a little bit. All right. All right. I try. Yes, DMV. Welcome, welcome. So we could see the northern lights last night. I don't know if anybody went outside. My neighbors all posted pictures of it, and I like looked at them. I tried to see it from outside my house, and I couldn't see it. So, but yes. Um more of a cop driver. So does that mean you drive well, or does that mean you drive poorly? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Oh. So so they just got to get out the way. If you're going to go slow, be on the right. Enforcer. Oh, welcome, welcome. So, Ishvona, so I don't know how to say it in past tense. Ishvona Bitberg. Uh, no, Ish. Am I speaking French? Nope, that's French. So I learned French and German at the same time. Few years after each other. I get my French and German mixed up in my head. Yes, I lived in Bitburg, Germany, which is in southern Germany. We used to go to Trier and Prague, and we would take the boat, because this was back in the 90s. We would take the boat over. Yes, Bitte ein Bit. That brewery it was a nasty smell. If you've never lived near a brewery, ugh, ugh. So I because and the way they teach language in America doesn't really work. Yeah, I thought I said I live. Yep. So, um, Ishvona? Would Vona be past? I don't know. So don't have me. Ich bin ein Berliner. I am a jelly-filled donut. I speak German when you're speaking German. Better than Netherlands. Nice. Yes, yes. 'Cause I think sometimes in the Netherlands, because yes, some people, yeah. I I love traveling down there. I had a great time. Whoa. Do you know anyone with the last name Barry? There are a lot of Gloucesters in the Barry area. You might be a cousin. Um, Thank you for being a member for 2 months. Welcome, welcome. Okay. Abba, go. So I have to, so I got to translate it. So I love French, learned it. Okay. So we have gotten to the point where I like, we're just chatting and this is amazing. Welcome, welcome. This is what we do here. I so appreciate each and every one of you. My goal is for us to learn and grow together. There are some cases that I cover, there are some cases that I don't. Somebody sent me a video of a mother talking with her adult son about the fact that he can't be depressed. And the way it was filmed, it was done in like a TikTok way where it seemed like this was staged and she was, because it looked like he was recording it, and like it came across completely staged, and it was very problematic, the things she was saying. And because she's sitting here like, how can you be depressed, you don't have any bills, or I don't know, like, and everything she was saying to me reinforced mental health stigma, and I didn't want to platform her here. And so, Lisa, did you catch my Menendez brothers video? I took a look at the movie. I took a look at the movie. Did you catch that live? Check out my live chat if you didn't check that one. Um, uh, and I wonder if they're gonna get resentenced. So I watched Emily D. Baker's coverage, and she talked about the fact that they might possibly have an opportunity to be resentenced because the judge would not allow their past essay by their dad to come into the hearing, and, that could have affected the jury, that could have affected the outcome. So there might be a chance that they can, because they've already served 35 years. Gypsy Rose only served 8, and she orchestrated the death of her mother. I know she participated in like the defense against Go to John, but it was problematic. My personal opinion, my thoughts. So I don't know. Why didn't Boone take the deal? So I think Sarah Boone didn't take the deal. I think she wants a trial. I think she wants her day in court. Why did she get on the stand in that motions hearing? Like, the hearing on Friday, she didn't need to get on the stand. I think she wanted to get up there and say her piece. I don't know if her lawyer wanted her to see what it was like to testify and be cross-examined, because I think she overprojects how well she'll do on the stand. It's gonna be bad. I don't think it's gonna go well for her at all. All of her past statements are staying in, the majority of them, and that when that video comes in, and to me, I don't know that she's able to show remorse for what she did. She has this air of, "It was an accident, it wasn't my fault," and there's almost this air of, like, he didn't matter, and he did. He mattered to his family, he mattered to his children, and I think that gets lost with her sometimes, and it's very hard to watch this coverage, to see all of these things all these things going on. So I think she might think she would deny the public of this like famous trial, that she's giving her lawyer a chance to prove the case and be the lawyer that got Sarah Boone off. Like I think she wants that. I really, really do think she wants that. I don't think she's gonna win. I don't think she will. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. I don't think she will. I think at minimum, they're gonna find her guilty of manslaughter, and I still think is the lower end for manslaughter still 22 years, or is the lower end for second degree 22 years? Like, I just because I think the lower end for manslaughter might be the 22 years. And I do think the state might have a really good case that she's saying it was an accident. It wasn't intentional. She did not want him to die. So I don't know how that's self-defense. Because if you're truly afraid for your life, you don't go upstairs and go to sleep thinking they're going to get out. That's just not what you do. And so I don't those are my personal thoughts, my personal feelings. I don't know why, but my guess would be she wants a trial. She wants her day in court. She the only way she sees this being successful, because she said it in her letters. In all of her letters, she said, like, if you have to be a lawyer that wants success, or that she wants a successful resolution of her case. I think a lot of her prior lawyers probably told her best case scenario is manslaughter. Like, you did the thing. And I think the state has been offering her 15 years for a while. If I were the state, if she would try to come back to me wanting a deal, I would say 20 years. Like, I don't know that I would go back to 15. Like, we're this close to court, 20 years. I don't know. But that's just me. And once again, I want to point out personality delusion. So Lori Vallow is delusional, like clinical, psychotic delusional. Okay. Lori Vallow has random out there beliefs that are delusional, clearly delusional. We talk about Sarah Boone, it's more of a she doesn't see like her distortions of reality are more for her ego, and it's more in a personality. Like, there's no medicine for that. Like, there's no medication. So like for Lori Vallow, there are medications for people that are delusional. There are therapies, there are all those things. For this type of situation, Sarah thinking she's the smartest person in the room, and yet she doesn't understand the question of, were you impaired? Are you saying you were impaired? During like, all of a sudden she doesn't understand words? And I think she's gonna play that game on the stand. And I like it. Sometimes people call it weaponized incompetence. All of a sudden, it's like she doesn't know things, she can't do things, but it's to make herself the victim, like, "Poor me," and then she wants her lawyer to come in and save her, and he starts talking over the judge, and he starts interrupting people and not giving law, doing speaking objections. It's it's a problem. I I I wish she was thinking about her son because Sarah Boone has a child with that last name. Like, we all know, like, kids in school know. And this trial, she's not it's not gonna look good for her. It's not. And she could have saved everybody a ton of pain, a ton of just heartache, and she would have got off easy because 15 years, she likely would have only had to serve, uh I've heard between 5 to 6 years if she was on good behavior, or it could have been closer to 8. She likely would have been free in about, like, 5 or 6 years. I believe her son is a teenager now. That's my understanding. I'm not gonna say his name here. If y'all could refrain from putting it in the chat. I haven't seen it yet, but let's just not. Because this is about Sarah, and this is about justice for George. And he didn't deserve this. I wish he had left. We don't talk enough about male victims of DV, because it's often underreported. Sometimes the police will like laugh at them or won't take them seriously or will be like, I don't know, like they'll make them feel like less of a man. I do think the officers in his case, because I think they encouraged him to press charges when she left marks on him. Because there was one time when she was arrested for what she did to him. And it's my understanding that she talked him out of, like, she told him what to say to make those charges go away or something. That's my understanding. It really can be emasculating for a male, and but that harm, it's it's bad. It really is bad. Let me see. Let me see. This question, does it take men the same number of times to leave? It might be more. I don't know that that's ever been studied. I could see it being more because I don't know that men are always taught the cycle of violence. Sometimes they don't see what they're experiencing as harmful. My husband and I got into this the other day of like, so I believe my son doesn't have the right to put his hands on anybody, and nobody has the right to put their hands on him. Now, if he's defending himself, that's a whole other situation. But like, I don't want my son to be aggressive with boys. I don't want him to be aggressive with girls. Does that, like, I want him to respect the boundaries of others and for him to have good boundaries too. That's my goal. But there are people that view hitting a boy hitting a girl worse than a boy hitting a boy. Cause like, oh, that's just boys being boys. And I think that causes problems. Say the no, like nobody has their right. Nobody has the right to put their hands on my child in a way he doesn't like. Now there is horseplay. So boys are more likely to engage in like horseplay. And if they're playing like a slap game, there's a game where boys like punch each other in the gonads on purpose, and like we're all playing the game, we're all happy with it. I'm well, but if somebody does not want to be touched, if somebody does not want to be harmed, I think everybody has the right to exert their autonomy. So Lisa, my video on the Menendez brothers, I did talk about male victims of SA because there are people that used to think, so in the 80s and 90s and maybe even earlier to early 2000s, there was language around, I think was rooted in homophobia and all types of other things, that like boys couldn't be SA'd. And it's just it's a whole thing. Welcome to the membership. Um, and so I also don't think that a boy being mean should be. So we teach girls that when a boy is mean to you, that means he likes you. Type of mind. What? Like, oh, he's being mean to you. It's because he likes you. No, no. If he likes me, he should come and be nice to me. He should come and tell me nicely. So when I was in elementary school, there was a boy that I think liked me. But when he liked girls, he would threaten to push them down the stairs. And we were on like, it was like 4 stories. Our stairwell was 4 stories, and we were in 4th grade, and we were on the 4th story. And that freaked me out. I went and told my mom. My mom talked to his mom, and I don't know what happened, like he never said anything to me ever again. It was fine. No, that shouldn't, no, if you like somebody, come and be nice. Don't be mean. So like sometimes we sow those seeds. I don't like the romantic comedies where like the guy's a jerk and then all of a sudden he likes her and now they're nice and now they like I'm just like, that's toxic. Love shouldn't hurt that way. Does that make sense? So like there are times when we're disappointed in love. There are times when like there are misunderstandings, there are misperceptions, there are other things that happen, but like there shouldn't be abuse. There shouldn't be harm. There shouldn't be coercive control. I told a middle schooler the other day, if a boy won't let you break up with them, that's a hostage situation. What do you mean he said you can't break up with him? What? No, like that's so I teach the kids and teens that I work with about coercive control. I wished I knew about it when I was their age. I wish I knew about like that healthy relationships shouldn't have control. There shouldn't be you shouldn't tell me what to wear. I don't tell you what to wear. Like there are these toxic things that are portrayed online sometimes and nah, it's it's a problem. No hostages, exactly. Like, wait a minute. Like if I can't break up relationships should have choice. I should have the choice to stay or go, and I choose to stay. So I'm married. We just celebrated our 11th anniversary, and, I choose to stay. He chooses to stay, and if he chose to go, he would just owe me child support and alimony. And we have a closed relationship. If so I don't check my husband's phone, he doesn't check mine. He has the password to my phone, I have the password to his. He hasn't even he barely has his phone. I'm the one that's always on my phone. We have open communication and within our marriage, within our relationship, we talked about our non-negotiables. And for me and him, a non-negotiable is, hey, if you want to be with somebody else, break up with me. Break up with me. Your spouse should be your partner, not your jailer. And not like your parent. Like, so I don't ask my husband permission to, but now I am considerate. So like in November, I'm gonna go meet with a friend on the weekend. So I have a female friend that we're gonna get together for lunch. And so I'm gonna talk with my husband about it. We're gonna coordinate schedules, all of those things. But I don't need his permission. Uh, So sometimes there can be financial abuse, and I don't think we talk about that enough. Where if I have to ask my husband for money to buy food, and if he doesn't like just like train like if he's iffy about that, about giving me money for food. So I just the way money works in my household, you don't have to do it in your household, but the way it works in ours is we both have access to both of our accounts, but we pay bills out of separate pots. And we have like a joint savings that like we both can spend out of. We have so I don't have to ask my husband to spend $50. Uh, I do like, but over a certain amount. So once things get to a certain amount, we have conversations about it. We have a trip planned for next year that he doesn't know about yet. He doesn't watch my channel. If he asks me about this, I'll know that he watched. Hi, babe. But I'm going too far off topic. He would never get this far in the video. But like it's in December of next year. We have a trip. I haven't paid for it yet, but it's a family reunion. It's already planned. He'll he'll find out about it like next year. It'll be fine. Yeah, exactly. So y'all's rule is anything over 500. And so every couple, every family does that. When I first got married, like I wanted us to agree on everything. Like I wanted us to like do the house together and agree on everything. And what that led to was we have a formal living and dining room. So for 9 years, the formal living and dining room was just empty for 9 years because we just didn't know what to do with it. Finally, I was just like, "Hey, can I do what I want?" He was like, "Yep." And I had a blast. I love a like coastal theme. And so I have a gold couch and like the blue and it's absolutely gorgeous. I absolutely love it. And he's like he didn't care. So if I was gonna redo our bedroom, he would care. Like, I would have to be like, "Hey, like, this is what I'm thinking," because this is a room he's in all the time. The formal living and dining room, he didn't care. But I was trying to, like, wait. But his style is very beige. It's very, like, it was very beige. I'm like, I like color. I like bright. And so, uh, I got to do what I wanted to do, and I'm happy. And he didn't mind. So because like I said, it would be a conversation if it was a room that he was in all the time, or a space that was like that we used all the time. It's that front room that we're never in anyway. And so, um, yay, you like bright too. Yes, yes. Bursts of color are beautiful. Let me see if I can show y'all. Let me see if I can find, because I put it over on my Amazon page because that the couch is gorgeous. I absolutely love it. It's L-shaped, and the before and after was night and day. During COVID, it was perfect. It being empty because we used it as a storage space. So we had water, toilet paper, like we had all of that stuff in that space. But then finally, yes. All right. Let me see. I think I can add these over here and then I can share. Let's see. Okay. And I'm going to add one more. All right, good. Let me share. Present? Nope. Whoops. I pressed the wrong button. Share screen. I was already sharing and I didn't know it. Oh, I think I made the other one go away. So this was the first one. See, like it's so pretty. She's pretty. And then I have another one because it ended up going away. This one. All right. And then this one. And so absolutely love it. And this was completely bare, completely blank, and it was sad. It was a very, very sad room. And it made me happy. Ooh, yes. So the rug is from Amazon. Like almost everything is from Amazon. And I think I have it linked over on my Amazon list. Because I think I have a similar rug in my office here. All right. I appreciate you all. And that plant died. The little one died. Which one died? The purple one? Yep, that one died. The other plant is still alive, but and it's lasted a year. Somebody gave me a tree. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. So they are wood. Yeah. The lily. It's a lily. It was like a lily. Probably should have replanted it or something. I don't know. But it died. My son kept a white lily alive for like a long time. A really, really long time. So blues are like calming and peaceful. The gold just makes me happy and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. All right. So thank y'all so much for being here. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.